Welcome into the Armchair Illini podcast. My name is Austin Burklund, and thank you for making us part of your day. This is the Armchair Illini podcast, but that's only part of what we do at Armchair Illini. Follow us on X, follow us on Facebook, and follow us on Instagram, or visit armchairillini.com for the best written Illini work from Alex Chi, from Kirkland Chapel, and from my boy, Robby Nardini. This is the Armchair Illini podcast, and we couldn't do it without subscribers like you for the channel, and we couldn't do it without viewers like you on this channel. And I want to bring up our sponsors. Our first sponsor is Hamilton Walkers. Illini fans, the Armchair Illini podcast is fired up to team with Hamilton Walkers. Seafood and spirits, hands down the best dining experience in Champaign-Urbana. We're talking prime steaks, fresh seafood, and a vibe that's perfect after a big Illini win. And here's the game changer. Every single home game, we're giving away a $100 Hamilton Walkers gift card. All you got to do is follow us and Hamilton Walkers on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to get on the action and experience Hamilton Walkers, where Champaign-Urbana comes to celebrate. We've got a great show for you tonight. We have Robby Nardini of the Armchair Illini podcast and armchairillini.com and Joe Jackson from Feed the Post. And we're going to be talking all things college basketball tonight. It is Game 1 is under the books for the Illini and most teams across the country, and we wanted to bring Joe to get some initial impressions and to talk about this Illini basketball team coming up. So, Joe, what are your immediate thoughts on this Illini team, and what have you seen from the first game, and what are your expectations for this season?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was you couldn't ask for much of a better result from Illinois in game 1. Basically, offensively, defensively, did literally whatever they wanted. Even with a couple of the injuries, I know they'll get Stojakovic back soon, Petrovic as well. But yeah, like it was just a fun watch, especially these first games, it's tough to fully maybe draw big conclusions, but there's definitely little things that stand out. And Illinois' three-point shooting, spacing, kind of how they were able to move the ball offensively definitely stood out. So I'm very excited. Basketball is back. I'm excited. We're past exhibitions. Like, these games do matter now. And I'm excited just to kind of see where the Big Ten and this Illinois team can go.
Awesome. Appreciate you giving us that info, Joe. I know, you're a pretty big presence on Twitter doing, previews for all college basketball and focused on Big Ten too. So definitely a big fan of your work. I was kind of curious. I know you did a Big Ten preview on Twitter and released that. I was curious, what are some, core stats and numbers that you look at really to predict what teams are going to be good this season and what teams are going to be a little bit lower on your list?
Yeah, I think first thing, it does start with who do you bring back and who do you bring in. I think it can be done in a variety of ways, right? I think the Purdue model is obviously very solid of, hey, we're just going to kind of retain everybody and we'll patch up the little bit of holes with some different pieces. I think Illinois and Brad Underwood especially has showed like you can kind of be the opposite of that at times and just get these new rosters. I think Underwood specifically has been one of the better coaches of just like, all right, I'm bringing in a new team. This is what the team is this year. Like, let me adjust to where I need to be. Beyond that, like, there's definitely just the simple, like, hey, what are, 3-point shooting? What 3-point attempt rate that a team has? That definitely big on kind of just the 4 factors overall. And I would say I've gotten more into some of the advanced, like, offensive box plus minus, defensive box plus minus for individuals. I think they need to be taken with grains of salt. Like, I think they need context, but it's definitely, I mean, I think there was I forget the exact number, 187 newcomers to the Big Ten. I watched film on them all. I think having some of those metrics too at least gives you some sort of baseline. Now, yeah, right, still film needs to kind of be watched to be like, oh, this is why the numbers are what they are. But different things like that definitely helps this off season of just being able to see like, okay, here's kind of what I think of these players, and then trying to guess and put the pieces together or estimate what the pieces might kind of look like.
So the Illini have a major non-conference opponent coming up in Texas Tech, and one of the main players, if healthy, the Texas Tech Red Raiders have some health issues, but if healthy, JT Toppen. What kind of player should Illini fans expect to see, and is he truly a National Player of the Year favorite in your eyes?
Yeah, I think he definitely is. I mean, he was one of the best players it felt like last season. I know there was a pretty good top 2, 3, and he was either in that mix or probably right outside that mix. Somebody that can just kind of impact the game in a multitude of ways. I think he's was one of the best rebounders in the country last season. Not really a shooting threat, but can knock one down if needed. And we'll see if he tries to extend that part of his game this season. As I'm sure he has pro aspirations in the near future. A really good kind of role threat. And I think it, in my eyes, it's between him and Trakoff and Wren of Purdue is probably the two best short rollers in the country, where they're going to screen, roll to anywhere from 6 to 13 feet and just kind of a really big threat in that area. Moves very well, can get to different types of angles. Also converts really, really well at the rim. Like, I feel like he's a pretty strong player, good rim protector, right? He's just kind of everything you pretty much want out of a big. And he's maybe a bit undersized for the true center spot, or at least in terms of Big Ten standards. But still just really strong, moves very well, and skilled in multiple assets. It makes him a really tough guy to guard.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, JT Toppen, definitely one of the best players in the country. I think Texas Tech is even underrated at number 10 in the country. So should be a great non-conference matchup coming to Champaign on November 11th. Sure, it'll be a sold out crowd with a lot of orange in the State Farm Center. Speaking of just, bigs like JT Toppen and other bigs within college basketball, one of my hot takes this offseason was Tomislav Ivisic being an All-American this year. I was curious your thoughts on and rankings on Tommy overall coming into the season.
Yeah, no, I've been very, very high on him. Even just looking at what he did last year was super impressive. It felt like, and it felt like he was still in that secondary, third type role, behind behind KJ. Once Will Riley got going, behind like guys like him, it feels more like it should be closer to like his team this year, especially with. I know Petrovic will come back and he's a true point. I don't view Wagler or Boswell as like true points. They can both operate in that position without a doubt. But Ivisic's passing and kind of facilitating capabilities really opens up, I think, the floor for Illinois. I think I'm trying to look up my exact rankings. I think I had him as the 6th best Big Ten player coming into the season, but it's all, I mean, you're splitting hairs once you get to that top. I think there's a clear, pretty like top 7. And I think you're splitting hairs pretty much between those. I can't say I had that preseason take of an All-American for him, but I mean, I'll be all on board for that. Like, I fully believe in what he's able to do, and on both ends of the floor too, right? Like, I think he's a good rim protector. We know he can stretch the floor. Good passer, good interior finisher. Like, yeah, I'm all on board for if he wants to make an All-American push.
Speaking of player rankings in the Big Ten, who's a player that you are much higher on that a lot of the rest of the country or maybe even the conference is a little bit sleepy on?
There's a lot of players I think I could probably go to that. I mean, starting like at the top end, I think Nate Biddle still is probably a bit underrated. I know Oregon just barely squeaked out a win against Hawaii, which seems to be their MO of just randomly winning close games against mid-majors. I think he's very impactful on both sides of the ball. John Blackwell's another bigger name where I think, but at least Big Ten fans for sure know who he is. I would expect most college basketball fans to know him. I think he's going to be as good as, if not better than Tanjay from last season. I think he's somebody that can kind of take that really big leap. Ademara over at Michigan, I expect him to take a gigantic leap. Here's a good one. Here's a good one that I think goes probably more under the radar than he should. Still a very good player, and Big Ten fans know him. But Rank Most over at Nebraska, he sat out last season, coming back from had off-season surgery, couldn't play. He's really good, and he just kind of got forgotten, I think, in a lot of preseason stuff. And I know Nebraska is not awesome this year, but he is just a really, really fun player, I think. And I'm excited to kind of see what he's able to do.
Yeah, I like all those guys you mentioned. I think the Big Ten is super loaded this year. Might be the best conference all of college basketball with all the guys coming back. We'll see there. I know Purdue is the favorite, at least in the Big Ten, and one of the favorites to win the national championship. I'm kind of put you on the spot here, Joe, but if you had to choose a team in the Big Ten, not named Purdue, that could win a national championship, who would you choose?
I would go Michigan right now. I do think Illinois and UCLA they're on the border for me of like, if things go right, I can definitely see it for those two. But Michigan would be the team I would go with. I'm just bought in on the defense. I think they won't be the best defense because Houston exists and Houston's just a gauntlet defensively. But I think they can be a top 2 to 3 defense in the entire country. Yaxel is awesome. I like the Cadeau fit, I think, more than others probably have this offseason. I see kind of what May wants from him and his ability to get downhill. But the front court of Yaxel, Merez, and Ade Mara is just I think it's very much in the argument for best front court in the entire country. I expect Merez and Mara to both take jumps kind of this season as well. And I think they both fit in very well into Dusty May's system. I know there's concern with like the shooting and maybe some potential spacing and clunkiness. I'm not as worried. I obviously still a concern. I'm not as worried, I think, just because between Yaxel, Mara, Merez, even Cheddar can be thrown in there. Like, they're just going to dominate the glass. They are going to dominate the paints. They're going to be, in my eyes, similar to what Michigan State was last season. I would just argue this Michigan roster probably has a bit more talent than that Michigan State roster did last season. So I'm very high on them. I do understand, like, if this offense, like if the turnovers are an issue, if the shooting's an issue, the bottom could sort of fall out quickly. But I do think that they're a legitimate Final Four contender already.
The Armchair Illini podcast is pumped to team up with Campus Inc.'s official Illinois NIL store. Get officially licensed gear from your favorite Illini stars, Luke Altmaier, Terrence Shannon Jr., Kofi Coburn, and many, many more. Support your favorite athletes and rep the orange and blue. Use code Armchair Illini for 15% off today. That's Armchair Illini for 15% off today. Again, thank you for watching this Armchair Illini podcast. Again, follow us on X, Facebook, and Instagram at Armchair Illini. Like, share, and subscribe to this video. And then again, visit armchairillini.com. So, Joe, you look at this Big Ten title drought that's gone on since 2000. My goodness, what a long time. What is it going to take for a Big Ten team to finally break through? And is this the year that it will finally happen? I know we talked about Michigan and Purdue, but do you think they truly have the firepower to win a national title this year? What is holding the Big Ten back from that elusive championship?
I mean, I think, yeah. So to start off, I absolutely think that the Big Ten could do it this year. I really like Purdue and Michigan. I really like the top 4 between those two, Illinois and UCLA. I think all 4 are have legitimate paths to make deep runs. And you could throw in a couple other teams, Wisconsin. I'm still bought in on Oregon. And of course, you kind of go through the middle of the Big Ten of, you don't really want to count out Tom Izzo with Michigan State, even though the talent itself is probably a little bit down. And then you have a couple questions of is Iowa, IU, they might have the talents, Washington, but keeping it at the top, I think the top end talent is really good. I also think the Big Ten has started to switch over the last couple years to being a bit more guard heavy. If you go through some of the best players, and I forget, specifically, or I guess the Big Ten did a 10-person all preseason team or whatever, but you go through the consensus kind of top 5 and it's generally 4 guards and a big or 3 guards and 2 bigs. And that hasn't been the case over the last few years. So I think getting a little bit more guard depth, the point guard spot in the Big Ten this year is I don't think people have realized how incredible it is. Bruce Thornton's the 5th or 6th best point guard probably in the conference. And that's he's a very, very good point guard. So I think as the Big Ten has started to adapt a little bit, you get in new faces, with Ben McCollum, Darren DeVries, those types of guys. It's kind of bringing new life in as well, new talents, adding 4 West Coast teams just purely by numbers gives you a better chance to be able to make it. They also just kind of got to get lucky. I was in some of the offseason preview stuff I was looking at. I don't think I have the stats anymore, but basically the Big Ten since 2000, they are 0-8 in national championship games. And if there's some level of, if you think a national championship game is going to be roughly 50-50, obviously it doesn't exactly work out that way, but in general, it should be somewhere between a 40 to 60% chance that any team in the championship wins. Going 0-8 is just kind of at some point a little unlucky. Kind of looking through, and some of it is right. Like 2 years ago, Purdue just ran into a buzzsaw of UConn. Right, I would say Purdue is probably comfortably the second best team.
Illini fans know the feeling.
Yeah, exactly. Right, and so there's just different things like that. I think the depth of the top end maybe could help a little bit. Where I wouldn't be shocked if if Big Ten could get 2 Final Four teams. And maybe that's what the Big Ten needs. They just need an all Big Ten championship, and that's the only way they actually win one. But I think the talent at the top end is good enough in a year where, outside Houston, I would say there's like no definitive like 100% top tier team. Purdue's probably thrown in that, but even then, it's like, hey, is the defense good enough? Compared to last year, where it was just kind of like, oh yeah, this top tier is just absolutely elite. So might just be me, a little bit of my Big Ten homerism, being hopeful that they can do it. But I do truly think that the Big Ten has the talent to hopefully bring home a championship this year.
I hope so too. It's been too long since the Big Ten has won the national championship. So definitely agree there. We've talked about the top tier teams in the Big Ten: Purdue, Michigan, Illinois, etc. I was curious, in your opinion, when we talk about the middle of the pack or even the bottom of the pack of the Big Ten, what teams are you higher on than most, and what teams are you lower on than most?
Yeah, Wisconsin, I know they're generally upper tier, but I am really high on them. I think they're a top 15, 20 team, at least, and especially in the regular season. Like Greg Gard just turns out good teams. I think I had them 17th before last season in the preseason, and I'm just like, yep, not making that mistake again. Like I said, Blackwell, I love the additions they had. So I know they're generally more top, but I'm very, very high on them. I think I've grown a lot more on like Indiana and Iowa throughout the offseason, where I think, and Washington, honestly, all three. I think I had concerns, and I still have concerns, and we still have to see what they do against good teams. But kind of as the offseason's progressed, been becoming higher and higher, I would say, on those teams as well. A team I'm lower on is Ohio State. I recognize that the offense is good, and I think I probably have undersold the offense a bit this offseason. I think there's a realistic chance they're the worst defense in the conference. And that
Didn't they just give up 103 points in their first game?
Yeah, IU Indy plays just in insane style, but they did give up 102 to IU Indy, and that's far from ideal, I would say. So they're a team I've been lower on. Nebraska is the other team I've been higher on. I think, like, if I was to, Wisconsin and Nebraska definitely higher on. I don't know if Nebraska is a top half Big Ten team, but I think they're close to the middle and have an outside chance of kind of making the tournament. And Ohio State, just because of the defense, I also don't trust Diebler as a coach unless he's coaching against Purdue. I don't trust him really don't trust him as a coach. So they're a team I'm lower on in the Big Ten.
Illinois has a big non-conference game against UConn in Madison Square Garden, trying to kill 2 birds with 1 stone with the horrors that was the Madison Square Garden game last year and then UConn in that Elite Eight game. How do you compare the UConn talent they have this year compared to years previous?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're not. I don't expect this team to be nearly as good as 2 years ago when that was one of the better teams we had seen in recent memory, at least at that point. Should be, I assume, better than last season. And I know they didn't have like a terrible season, but by UConn recent standards, it was a poor season. Caravan's awesome. I really like him. I like some of the pieces that they got with like Malachi Smith, solo ball. They're very small outside of kind of Reeb, the freshman. They're right. I'm kind of looking through the roster even right now. Like, really, Caravan can play a small ball 5 at 6'8". So I think they're going to be interesting for whatever Dan Hurley is. I know he's very divisive, I guess, coach, you could say, and how people view him. He's really good at coaching offense. He's very good at coaching offense. This offense is going to be a lot of fun. Once again, there's going to be shooting, there's going to be spacing, there's going to be skill. And it feels like he's got guys more bought in probably defensively this season than maybe he did last year. So It should be somewhere in the middle ground between last season and 2 years ago is kind of where I feel like UConn will end up.
Similar question though for Mizzou. I know that we have them every single year, and Dennis Gates bunch. What do you think about them?
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, not as familiar with them. Like, I haven't deep dived them as much, but I know that they return a good chunk from what they did last season. And last year, they were a 6th seed in the tournament, faced Drake. It was probably the best mid-major in the country, and then Ben McCollum, obviously now at Iowa with Bennett Sturts. So a good season last year, where now they're able to bring back a lot. I think Dennis Gates has improved as a coach. It was hard not to improve last year compared to the year before when they went 0-18 in the SEC. But this feels like a team that's like top 20, top 25 to me. Maybe a little top 25, top 30 maybe to me, where I think they're going to have some really good games behind. Like, I like the Sebastian Mack pickup from UCLA. I like Javon Porter. Like, they have some guys that are good. Mark Mitchell. There might be a couple games where they just get blown out bad. I wouldn't be shocked by that, but I think they should be a competitive team once again. Which, for Missouri fans, I think they're probably generally happy with that.
Yeah, I think last question for me. We talked about a bunch of the non-conference games. I think we play, Texas Tech, Alabama, Tennessee, UConn, Missouri, and then as well as the Big Ten slate. Obviously, you're familiar with the Big Ten. What's kind of your prediction for Illinois in the non-conference as well as the conference slate?
Yeah, just kind of looking through Texas Tech at home, Bama is semi-home. Chicago, okay, and then the UConn and Tennessee are both semi-away. So I would expect them to probably drop 2 non-conference games. That feel 1 to 2 feels right. Where I don't know exactly which one. I would maybe pencil in UConn, and maybe they drop one of the others between Tennessee, Texas Tech, and Bama. Although I think I would pick them Illinois in all 3 of those. So 1 to 2 losses non-con feels about right to me. And then conference play, I do think it's going to be another gauntlet this year. Outside of Penn State and Rutgers, they are not good at basketball. The other 16 teams are very good. Even Minnesota and Northwestern is the 15th and 16th best teams. They're probably both going to end up around top 60 in KenPom, and that makes it tough every night. Where it's for the most part no nights off. KenPom has them at 5 losses. That feels right to me. I would 5 losses feels right, and I would say the winner's probably at 4 losses. So Illinois picks up 1 extra. I wouldn't be shocked if they could win the Big Ten. They feel very much in that top 3, 4. To me, the top tier of the Big Ten, and should be competing for some hardware come March.
What would keep them from hitting that ceiling?
I would say the defense. That's my bigger concern. I think the offense, I trust it's going to be good, and I think there's some floor of the defense just with you have both of Ivisiches. They're automatically gives you a good kind of rim protector at your core. I like Merkovich on both sides. We know who Kylan Boswell is defensively, obviously one of the best perimeter defenders in the conference. So there's still a floor, but it's more of how does everybody else kind of fit around them? If Jake Davis I know he'll play less when Stojakovic comes back, but he's somebody that people can target. Petrovic, even Wagler, there's just guys where I want to. It's not that I'm for sure they're bad defenders. It's more of I do want to see it first. And so that would be the only kind of hang up for me is, if the defense kind of falls off and, instead of right now, KenPom has them as 13th, whether maybe they end up if they could end up as a 35th best defense, something like that. I don't expect it to happen, but that would be the case. Or I guess the other one is just they forget how to shoot the basketball again, like last year. That one would also hurt, but I don't expect that to happen either.
Joe Jackson, where can people find you on social media, and where can people find your content?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter at JoeJacksonCBB, and that'll have links to kind of everything that I put out. But Feed the Post Substack, that is where you can find all of my Big Ten content, a lot of film breakdowns, kind of analysis, deep dives into the X's and O's and different things like that. Those are the 2 places that you can find me.
Robby, what do you got cooking on armchairillini.com next?
Yeah, just did a little Florida Gulf Coast preview for tomorrow, and then some new content coming out, leaking this new information on the pod for you guys. But starting on Fridays, I'm going to do some film room Fridays. So tomorrow I got something coming on David Merkovich, just some film there, and then obviously got the newsletter every Monday morning for Illini fans. That includes, recaps of the games, recruiting news, all things Illini hoops. So definitely follow me on Twitter as well.
Thank you guys for joining the pod tonight. It was a blast. It's like hearing that first Christmas song, like having that conversation about basketball, getting me really excited about this Illini basketball season and college basketball season. After this amazing Illini football year, it's hard to transition from that Illini football to Illini basketball with how successful the football team has been. But thank you guys. And as always, guys, like, share, and subscribe to Armchair Illini on various social media platforms and YouTube, and then armchairillini.com. And thank you to Hamilton Walker's Seafood and Spirits, as always, and then Campus Inc.'s official Illini NIL store, Armchair Illini, 15% off today, and then enter that Hamilton Walker's contest on social media before the Texas Tech game. This has been the Armchair Illini podcast. Thank you again for making us part of your day.